Okay, I think you're good to go.
All right. Hello, I am Juliana Reshik and serve as chair of the Continuing Nurse Education Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Continuing Nurse Education Committee to respond to a roll call signifying their presence at this open meeting via conference call. Rebecca Sonder.
Present.
Audrey Gouldsmith.
Present.
Gwendolyn Lloyd. Giovanni Gahn.
Present.
Melanie Burnett.
Present.
Laura Arbile. Kanetta Marka-Lyons.
Present.
Karen Offenberg.
Present.
And I'll go back to Giovanni Gahn.
Present. Can you hear me?
We can now. Thank you very much. I think we had Giovanni the first time. I think it was Gwendolyn Lloyd who was not. Maybe. Is Gwendolyn here?
Madam Chair, this is Carol Moreland, and Gwen is not going to be here. I heard from her just a little bit ago.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Laura Arbile. I ask that the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Carol Moreland, Executive Director or Executive Administrator.
Present.
Chelsea Stevenson, Education Specialist.
Present.
Public comment allows individuals to address the Continuing Nurse Education Committee about their concerns, but the Kansas Opens Meetings Act, which is known as COMA, does not require the Continuing Nurse Education Committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals. Public comment will not be taken today because there is the possibility that the connection for the remote meeting may be lost over time, and the time for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Additionally, we will not know what comments an individual may make, and we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter, so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Because we are conducting this public meeting remotely by Zoom and YouTube, I state for the record the following information. On June 3rd, 2021, the board sent notice of the meeting for the Continuing Nurse Education Committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at the website or by sending an email to carol.moreland@ks.gov with the subject line, request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. Number 2, the notice contains the internet links to access the meeting by Zoom and YouTube. The notice also contains the Zoom telephone number to attend this meeting by telephone call. All of these electronic mediums allow the public to attend the meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-2967 if they experience any technical issues during the meeting. Number 3, the state of disaster emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic will expire on June 15th, 2021. Because the requirements of COMA are not suspended, we will be conducting this meeting pursuant to COMA and KAR 16-20-1 concerning compliance with the COMA during an emergency declaration. The only mediums of interactive communication offered for this meeting are the connections by Zoom and YouTube as previously stated. Number 5, each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Number 6, each participant to the meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when the participant is not speaking. Number 7, Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. Number 8, a statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the committee. Number 9, a recording of the meeting will be posted to the board's website. Number 10, the committee has the following items listed on the agenda: call to order, review of the on-site packet, additions or revisions to agenda, announcements, approval of minutes for the meeting held in March 2021, unfinished business, new business, agenda for the committee meeting in September of 2021, and adjournment. Although these items listed in the agenda do not include an executive session, however, if the committee elects to exercise the option to go into executive session, the committee will follow this process. First, the committee must be an open session before going into an executive session. Second, a motion will be made and seconded pursuant to KSA 75-4319B. The motion must contain the statement of justification for closure, the subject to be discussed, and the time and place that the open meeting will resume. If a motion for executive session passes, public will be excluded from this portion of the meeting, as the executive session will be conducted by electronic means that will not be made available to the public. The committee members will return to the open meeting after the executive session. Number 4, the open meeting will resume when the committee members return to the Zoom and the YouTube meeting after the executive session. And number 5, the complete motion for an executive session will be recorded in the minutes. The meeting is now called to order, and the committee will now consider the next item on its agenda. So I believe, let me flip around here. I think we are ready. Review of on-site packet. I don't believe we had an on-site packet. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
So are there any additions or revisions to the agenda?
I'm not aware of any that need to be made.
Okay. So we do need a motion to accept the agenda as written. Is that right, Chelsea?
No, we actually do not need one.
Okay. I knew you'd sent me an email on that, and I couldn't remember if we did or didn't.
That's okay.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to announcements.
I only have one announcement. This is Chelsea, board staff. I just wanted to announce that we have hired a new education department assistant. Her name is Michelle. She begins on Monday. So she will be here in September and take over as the secretary for this committee.
Great. I bet that's great news for you too. So you need some help.
Yes.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, and we'll be glad to welcome Michelle. Any other announcements? Okay. Moving on to approval of the minutes. They were included in your packet. I don't know if folks had a chance to review them.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. I have a motion if you'd like me to go ahead and just read that.
That would be great.
Okay. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the March 2021 CNE Committee minutes as written.
This is Adri Goldsmith, LPN board member. I make the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
Giovanni Cornell, second that.
Thanks, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So moving on to our unfinished business, our delinquent long-term CNE provider update. Chelsea
Yes.
or Carol?
Yes, this is Chelsea. I'll go ahead and give that update. As you probably remember, in March, the committee directed staff to send certified letters to all of the CNE and IV therapy providers that were delinquent in their 2020 annual reports and or their fees. That was successful. I heard from many providers. I received payments from everyone that was missing. I received several reports. I do still have 8 providers who have not submitted an annual report or payment, and 4 of those have been delinquent since 2019. There is only 1 provider who has not submitted a report only. So we're looking at 9 total. So I just wanted to bring that information back to the committee and kind of let you direct as you see. Like I said, there's the 4 that have not submitted in 2019. All of these providers have been sent an initial notice when it was due, a late submission notice when they were due, and then the certified letter that required signature.
And they all did sign it. And we
Yes, I
received.
did receive a few where they sent them back to me, and because the person was no longer there, so they would not sign and they instead refused. And so then I would just resend that letter back and address it to the CNE coordinator. And that was successful. I did get several program coordinator updates from them at that point. They weren't aware that they had to submit that information to us. So I've been able to update several contacts with those delinquent providers and kind of get them back on track. Most of those delinquent providers that have a coordinator didn't even know they were supposed to be submitting reports. I had an IV therapy provider who had not submitted it since 2019. And within 10 minutes of making contact, they submitted 2019, 2020, and 2021. So
Oh, good.
I think it was well received. But we do still have these few that I am not able to reach.
So is there discussion about what we want to do with these?
Chelsea, is there a written policy about how long you leave somebody hanging without activity before you need to act on it?
I'm not for certain on the time frame. I know that we have to provide them with an opportunity to respond if we were to withdraw their providership. Jan has spoke with us about that before, whereas if the committee and board move forward with withdrawing their providership, we would have to notify them of that. And then I'm assuming at the September board meeting, they would have the opportunity then to present and explain why or why not they've not submitted this. The notice that they sent did let them know if they wanted to relinquish their providership, they could do so, but they still had to do that in writing. So I did have a couple one voluntary relinquishment from the letter, but they do have to be given that opportunity.
So Chelsea, I question if we don't move the opportunity to come back and explain themselves.
You were kind of cutting out there, Melanie.
I'm sorry. I would question about whether we would go ahead forward and then give the opportunity to come back in September and explain themselves and or relinquish providership.
Now, I would probably defer to Carol as far as, Carol, I'm not familiar with the process. If we could just send them another certified letter with that opportunity, if we need to.
Well, I believe my notes from when Jan talked last time, that there would need to be like a summary proceeding order and all of that. And then that would be, when we gave them the date that they could come and see. So I think probably if that's what the committee wants, then you need to do a motion that would include a recommendation that goes to the board tomorrow. And then the board can do the final direction if that's how the board wants to go. I believe that's probably the way it should be. And I don't know if the I don't know if it would be a hearing or actually to the next committee meeting. It may be a hearing, and at that point, the board may have to designate who from the board would be involved in that hearing, because it can't just be staff. It has to be a board member, is my understanding. So I can check on that before the board meeting tomorrow and see, just to make sure that I'm doing this right. But it probably would be a recommendation coming from this committee to the board tomorrow, if that's what you think should happen.
Melanie, I think you kind of started the conversation. Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I would make a motion that we've sent the reminders and gotten many respondents. So I would make a motion that we move forward and have the opportunity to come and explain themselves and or relinquish theirs.
Is there a second?
Edry Goldsmith, LPN board member, I second.
Thanks, Adri. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. I just want to make sure that I have the wording correct for this motion. I move to proceed with beginning the withdrawal process for delinquent LTP providers. Would that be sufficient?
That sounds good. Yes. Are you okay with that, Melanie?
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Sorry, I'm flipping between screens here. Get back to our agenda. Okay, we're on to the suggested regulation revisions. So we're at definitions. Chelsea, do you want to?
I am actually going to graciously accept Carol's help for this
Okay.
one.
Okay.
All right. Okay, on page 7 in your packet, that's Carol Moreland. We'll start with definitions. You had asked when we looked at these 3 in March that I make just a couple of minor little tweaks, which I did. So I think probably the definitions, 60-9-105, are pretty ready to go. I don't think I have questions about that. And 60-9-106, that one was the one in which I made the 2 small changes, and actually on page 12 or page 3 of this regulation. You wanted it under D, small d, like 5 lines down, fractions of hours, 30 minutes or greater. It did say over 30 minutes and you wanted 30 minutes or greater. So I made that change. And then number 5, F5 down here, it says offerings less than 30 minutes in length will not be recognized. The only concern I have about that is I would just guess when this hits Department of Administration that they will want the will not be recognized taken out, because if you look at F, which is, 5 is under F, it says contact hours shall not be recognized by the board for any of the following. And then we go down and say offerings less than 30 minutes in length will not be recognized. That's actually repetition. And I would think that she would take
I'm on
that
mute.
out.
I'm on mute. All right. Bye.
I would think that she would want that taken out, which means it would come back to me and I'd have to start the process over again. So with your permission, maybe we could just take out under F5, the underline that says will not be recognized. Whatever your thoughts are. I'll do it either way, but.
I would agree with that.
I do as well. It makes sense and only delays the process. It sounds like we'd be taking it out anyway, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you will be. Okay, and then 60-9-107, which starts on page 13. I think the only questions I had for that, as far as starting this through the process, is on page 16 in here. It would be about halfway down. It's a capital A. It says the provider's name, address, and provider number. You know, learning management systems do not allow for the provider name, address, provider number on the certificate. So this may be an issue if the provider is using a learning management system and we say that they have to have this information and there's no way that they can. I know what some have done is they take a little label and put on there that has the information because there's no way that they can have that information included from the learning management system. But we're not going to be able to have the stuff that's in italics in here, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not sure what you want to do about that, because I think there's probably more providers that are using learning management systems more and more. And so that may be an issue. So I just had some clarification on that before we send this forward. I don't know your thoughts about that.
Carol, this is Karen Optum, board member, or
Yes.
committee member, sorry. Can I go back to page 8?
Sure.
I was just looking at the definition of contact hour. The last part says fractions of hours over 30 minutes. Do we need to change that to
30 minutes or greater to match the other one? Okay. Is that what the committee wants to have done?
I thought
Makes sense for consistency. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. That's a good catch.
And then I had one more just thought, comment, or asking on the part, and I'm having trouble finding it, where instructor credit is given. Can't remember where that's under, where it's 2 times the amount of the presentation.
Oh, yeah.
We had a question come up. I believe there was a web-based course that was developed, and they were wondering, does something need to be written in regulation about if it's web-based as far as instructor credit? Do you still get 2 times the amount of time to prepare it?
No, stay.
I'm trying to find that in here.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding it.
I didn't think it stipulated whether it's web-based or in person.
Okay.
That's actually on page 15, 1.5, and it is small e2. It says instructor credit, which shall be twice the length of the first-time presentation of an approved offering, excluding any standardized prepared curriculum. So that doesn't really, separate web-based from in-person, anything along that line.
So that should cover web-based courses.
I would think so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Carol, we still need to figure out the italicized question on page 16. Is that correct?
That is correct, because if you're saying that, each certificate and CE transcript shall contain the following, that means the provider's name, address, and provider number has to be on there. So how do we handle when the CE transcript or certificate does not have that, and we question and they say, well, we can't put it on there because of our learning management system.
What does it allow them to do? This is Andrew Goldsmith, board member.
Oftentimes it allows them to put the name of the participant, like a license number of the participant, probably the address of the participant. It usually has the participants' information on there. It just doesn't have the providers on there. It may just say Via Christi Hospital or something, but it doesn't go into their address, their provider number from us, as far as LT such and such. It doesn't have all of that on it. So again, they either have to add it after the certificate or the transcript has been printed. And sometimes, I know this has been the case, that the participant actually goes into the learning management system and prints their own. They generate their own and print it. Well, then there's no way for the provider to add it because the participant's actually the one who's just printed it when they're getting ready to maybe renew their license or something like that. And they want to make sure that they actually have the certificate if they need it. So,
But it's important for us to have that information to ensure that these CNEs are coming from an accredited source, an approved
Right.
source.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Chelsea. If I could add, this is addressing just the certificate. And so if they are submitting their CNE through the individual offering approval process, they're also submitting an agenda with the detailed times listed of learning. A lot of times that will have the provider's information on it, the address and their name. Sometimes they'll attach the objectives for whatever they were attending, that would include it. So there would be a way potentially to still get that information if it weren't listed on the certificate. But I get a lot of questions, especially up to date, Elias, all of those LMS programs where they want to submit all these courses. And unfortunately, this bit here really prevents us from awarding a lot of CNE.
So I'm just thinking about like when you do an audit of a licensee and ask them to submit their CNE certificates, they typically don't, maybe I shouldn't, I don't save all the agendas and objectives and all of those of mine. I do save my certificate. So if I were to submit that and the certificate was missing that provider information, is there a way to validate that I had gotten them from an approved provider?
Well, this is Carol again, and I think probably what would happen in that, if somebody renews their license and they get audited and they get a letter from us telling it, you've got to send in a copy of your certificates within X amount of time. They send them in. That doesn't have all the information like the providers. It's probably more the address and the provider number would be my guess. Then what we would do is we would reach out to that nurse and say, this certificate is missing this information. And then if I was the nurse, then what I need to do is go back to my employer, if they're the ones who offered this, and say, okay, can you give me something else to show me that I attended or something? They may have a course roster that they could print out, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? We would ask for more verification, is what I'm saying.
When did this problem start creeping up? Is it here just in the last 10 years because there's so much electronic certificates versus the older days where, everything was more handled by hand? Is that what's triggering this, Carol?
I would imagine, yeah. A few years ago, I don't know exactly when, but we started allowing a CE transcript instead of a certificate. But you will see it says on here, each certificate and each transcript shall be complete. Okay, so it looks like this was amended last in 2013. I bet that might be when this was added. So you get more of your CE transcripts out of learning management systems, such as if my employer does CNE and I know that I just want to check and see how many CNE I've completed, I can go in to a learning management and I can run a list of what I've done within this amount of time. That would be like your CE transcript. Well, that wasn't really something that we had until we had a lot of the electronic stuff. But you're just seeing a lot more providers using learning management systems. It's much easier.
Just kind of don't have a solution. I mean, it's a lot. I don't know what we could do to help both sides. Unless they send a second page with it that had the missing information attached to the certificate. I don't know what else. You know what, when you blindly send in something without the provider's identification information and number, let alone the license number from the Kansas State Board of Nursing, that's hard to validate if they truly, really, indeed did complete those hours. But on the other hand, I can understand the learning management systems. There's no more room to put all that in there. There's no room. I know what they're saying. Rats.
I mean, it can be that we just take the italicized part out, realize that this is going to be an issue, and we just know as an agency that if we get it without that, then they're going to have to provide more verification.
They would have to.
Yeah, not to say that that's an automatic denial. It just would be that they have to provide some verification. Maybe it's a letter from the provider. I mean, I don't know. I think there's several ways around it probably, but
that's a thought. I don't know what else.
That's where my mind goes as well, Carol, because I don't feel good about not requiring it. And yet if we take it out as a regulation, I think then it's really going to fall to the licensee. And I just know, sitting on the practice side of things and you're trying to get CNEs and a new grad and everything else to have to know what's on that certificate specifically, I'm afraid we're going to have a lot of gaps. And so the more we can encourage the CNE providers to put it on there, the better off I think we're going to be.
I agree with that. And Relias and their learning and all of them need to find a way to put it on there.
Yes.
I know I work with Relias. Most of our certificates do have it on there, as long as the nurse knows how to go and put in the information to accept the CNEs for it. They come with there.
Oh, okay. So you're wanting me just to take out the italicized part and
Yes, I think so.
I agree, Liliana. I think that's the best we can do.
I think that's the safest thing to do.
Okay. I can do that. Then if you feel like these are ready to start through the process then, and we've got everything that you want, then we'll just need a motion that would go to the board then to approve with the revisions. And then the board can vote on it tomorrow also. And just to kind of review with everybody kind of the process when we do regulation revisions is once I get the okay from the committee and the board to move these forward, then I send them to the Division of Budget with an economic impact statement. And then they stamp everything as being approved from them. Then it goes to Department of Administration and they go through all the grammar and everything like that. And everything has to be absolutely perfect. And then if it is, it will get stamped from them. And then it goes to the Attorney General's office where they look at the legalities of it all. Does the Nurse Practice Act, does the statute give us the legal authority to do this? And if there's any changes requested anywhere in the process, then it starts back over. I typically don't bring it back to the committee if it's just a little bit of grammar tweaking that needs to be done, because it slows it down for 3 months until there's the next meeting. And then once, if it makes it through the Attorney General and it's got the stamp from all 3 agencies, then there's a 60-day public hearing, a comment, and we publish it on our website. It's published in the Kansas Register. So we usually set it out, like 65 days or so. During that 60 days, anybody can provide comments on this. Anyone, any nurse, any public, anybody. Also during that 60 days, I go over and testify in front of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regs. It's a legislative committee that's made up of representations from the House and the Senate. And I go through all of this with them. And bear in mind that there's typically no one on there that has much healthcare background. So sometimes it's a little interesting. But then all of that feedback and everything comes back to the board at a board meeting. And then the board looks at all the feedback and all of that and decides if they want to make changes or they want to go with it as it is. So you're talking at least 6 months, or probably 6 to 9 months. It's not a fast project. Any questions or?
Carol, it's Karen Offenberg again. I just have one more, just to clarify. I think we talked about this in March on page 15 with our change with the daily roster. So we're leaving that up to the providerships or providers now on how they document attendance. So they don't have to sign. They just have to have in their policies how they're maintaining documentation.
That was my understanding, yes. Because we struck out that they would be required to sign a daily roster.
Okay, thank you.
Chelsea, do you happen to have a motion pre-written?
I do. There will actually be 3. So
Okay.
is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-9-105 as written with recommendation to change the language to read, quote, 30 minutes or greater.
This is Rebecca Sander, board member. I might make the motion.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second?
This is Karen. I second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-9-106 as written with recommendation to remove, quote, will not be recognized in F5.
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member. I make the motion.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
This is Rebecca Sander, board member. I second it.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve KAR 60-9-107 as written with recommendation to remove the information regarding learning management systems.
This is Melanie, committee member. I so move.
Thanks, Melanie. Is there a second?
This is Kanetta. I'll second. I'm the committee meeting.
Thank you,
Member.
Panetta. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much for that. So moving on to new business, we have our IOA statistical report.
So you will see this report on page 20. I would say that the electronic submission process for the IOAs is still going extremely well. We have a turnaround time currently of about 1 business day, which seems to be appreciated by the nurses. So other than that, there's nothing really new.
Thanks, Chelsea. How about program coordinator education? Want to give us an update on that?
Sure. So we are going to be moving forward with providing some education again for our coordinators. I have not got this on the calendar yet. I am actually going to be on medical leave later this week for a little bit. And so I plan to jump on this as soon as I return. I also would have liked to have gotten through our CNE annual report due at the end of July, by July 31st. And so I wanted to get through that. And then we are going to start working again with this training for our providers, especially because we're getting some new ones on board. And then my hope is that we can perhaps record a session to place on our website for them to come back to as needed, or as new coordinators come on board in between those sessions that we have.
That's great, Chelsea. I appreciate you doing that. And I think that's made a big difference for our providers. So great job. Our long-term provider relinquishments, it looks like we have one from Home Health and Hospice of Kansas.
Yes, that was the only one.
And we don't need to approve that, do we? We can just accept that. Okay.
Yep.
Then moving on to our 5-year renewals. I know that I had the Citizens Medical Center as one of mine, and I'm not sure. Chelsea, do you happen to have that form pulled up as well?
I do. It
Okay.
was Juliana, Giovanni, and Laura. Which,
Awesome.
Laura is not on the call, so.
Okay, so Giovanni, I did not have any concerns at all. I went through everything. The only question I had, I think, marked on it was, let me get down there to it. There was one box. The instructor credit. And I think I didn't find any opportunity for instructor credit listed. I didn't find those comments. I don't know if anyone else did.
Yes, Juliana, I did have some time to review the package, and as you mentioned, I think it was very complete. The only thing that I did notice that we were missing was a sample of the certificate for completion. We didn't have an example there to view.
Okay.
But other than that, it looked good.
So I think what we've done in the past is approved it, asking for that sample. Is that something we might like to do here?
This is Chelsea. I can go ahead and draft a motion if you'd like me to move forward with that.
Sure.
Okay. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Citizens Medical Center, Inc. upon submission of a certificate of a completion sample.
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member. I make the motion.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
This is Rebecca, board member. I'll second.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much. I think our next one is Fort Scott Community College.
Yes, and the committee members reviewing this is Rebecca, Melanie, and Kanetta.
I thought it was, this is Kanetta, committee member. I thought it was very well organized. I didn't see anything that they were missing.
Okay.
You know, I didn't either. The two CE examples they sent in, those classes, those were national speakers and very impressive and very credentialed, but they had their own agendas. So we didn't get to see how they do their agendas or anything, but you know, the way she completed her paperwork, it was very impressive. So I don't think I have any issues with them either. I agree with Kanetta.
It was a very good fun. The only thing I looked at was wondering about independent study, but they may not offer that at the college on any of their classes. So that was the only thing that I seen was missing.
I don't think very many do. I don't think they do either. And they didn't have an example of a bibliography. You know me being an educator all those years, I really like to look at the bibliographies, but they had a policy about the 10-year periodical and 10-year book and 5-year periodical. So I'm sure that they stay on top of what they wrote. So I have no issues.
Great. Very good. Chelsea, do you have a proposed motion?
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Fort Scott Community College.
This is Melanie. I so moved.
Thank you, Melanie. Is there a second?
This is Kanetta. I will second.
Thank you, Kanetta. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. So moving on to the Greater Kansas City chapter of NAP.
So this one was for Adri, Laura, who is absent, and Karen. And Madam Chair, if I may just add, this provider should have renewed in 2020. And they did slip through what I'm calling the COVID crack. So their 5-year renewal will actually expire in 2025.
Okay.
This is Karen. Just going through, it's kind of like what Rebecca said. Some things were mentioned in the policies, but on submission of their programs, I didn't see a bib listed. On the evaluation form, they didn't have the objectives on the evaluation individually listed. On their policy of record keeping, they didn't list out that a couple of items should be in there, like the brochure, bib. And I thought their instructor credit statement was stated a little different. They stated it as 2 hours of CME instead of like twice the amount to prepare.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this one?
Who else reviewed this one?
Adri.
Okay.
Just as point of reference, I believe we started on page, what was it, 128? I backed up on it. But anyway, I thought it was very inclusive. I found what you did, and that was all I determined on it too.
I also just noticed, I don't think I saw a roster on the first program they submitted. but maybe they don't have to actually submit.
I'm trying to get down there to the submissions.
I would wonder whether or not they submit an agenda. They're only an hour-long class.
Right. Yeah, I guess we don't have that they have to submit an actual roster.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a draft motion if you'd like me to read that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Greater Kansas City chapter of NAPNAP objectives upon submission of the objectives listed individually on the evaluation, brochures and bibliography added to the record-keeping policy, and editing the instructor statement to state twice the CNE instead of 2 hours of CNE.
This is Karen, committee member. I so move.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Giovanni Bonet. I'll second.
Giovanni, was that you?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. So now we have Memorial Health System.
Yes, and for this provider, it was Rebecca and Gwendolyn and Kanetta. And this is another one they should have renewed in June of 2020. And so their providership will expire in 25.
Okay.
So Chelsea, on the checklist, they should have renewed it in June. This is Kinetic Committee member. It's dated that it was sent to the CNE Committee in June 16th, 2021.
Well, and that should actually read today's date. That's when we're presenting this. They should have submitted it last June. And then we caught it in March and requested them to complete the renewal application, and they submitted it right away.
Yeah, I know it's not anything important, but.
No, thank you for pointing that out, though.
Well, again, Memorial Health, their application was very thorough and they didn't miss anything. But the 2 examples, they were canned programs. One of them was NRP, which is only half a day. And the other one was that dynamic speaker or something, life at the end of a stethoscope, which was awesome. You know, their topics and their classes are awesome, but we couldn't see, you know, an example of an agenda for the day, how they're counting hours, and their bibliography. So I have a question, Chelsea. The application process doesn't say to please have one of those examples be, you know, an ingrown or a, you know, hospital-grown program instead of national programs.
No, it just specifically, I'm looking at the wording. I believe it just specifically asks for 2 proposed offerings.
Oh, I know. Because I can see if they kind of had to scramble because they realized, you know, they had to do this quickly. And those were 2 handy dandy classes to show because the presenter already is, you know, it's all embedded in the national speaker days, the day he had, and the NRPs already is a canned. So he really couldn't see what one of theirs looks like, but it was all covered in the application, you know, how their processes, like Karen was saying too, they were all covered how they do that in their application. So there was no deficits. I didn't see any concerns either.
Anyone else have comments? Okay, Chelsea, do you have a motion for us?
Yes. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Memorial Health System.
This is Kanetta. I will motion the Memorial Health System.
Thank you, Kanetta. Is there a second?
This is Rebecca, board member. I'll second.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So now I think we're at Optum Infusion Pharmacy.
Yes, this was Audrey, Giovanni, and Karen.
Okay.
This is Giovanni. I didn't see anything.
And this is Karen. Again, on the immunology program, I noticed the objectives weren't listed individually on the eval.
Okay.
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member. I thought that might have been included in the planning part to ensure all presentation activities, but I guess it's something different that you're looking for.
Yes, I think on the program they submitted, the evaluation just didn't have them listed out.
So is that something that you think we could ask for and approve it in lieu of getting that, or?
Yes, I think we can just do the recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Chelsea will entertain a motion then.
There a committee member who would like to make the following motion. I move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Optum Infusion Pharmacy upon submission of individual objectives listed on the evaluation for immunology.
Do we have a board member wanting to make that motion?
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member. I make the motion.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
This is Karen, I second.
Thank you, Karen. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. And then I think we have a new provider and for 5-year. I'm trying to pull this up on 2 screens so I can look at the agenda and this. So this is a new provider, initial long-term care provider for debriefing the front lines. And this was one of mine, and I'm not sure who else was assigned.
Gwendolyn and Melanie.
Okay. So Melanie, I don't know what you thought. It looked great to me.
Yeah, the only question I had on it, again, was independent study. It looked all online to me. Is that what you were getting out of it?
Yeah, I just assumed they weren't, independent study. I was thinking, so maybe they would need that. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, if it's all online, is all independent? I mean, I could be wrong.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. On page 246, it looks like you address under verifying participation, they do talk about independent study there. I don't know if that meets what you're looking for, but.
On 246?
Yes.
Yes, I see it. It's there.
Huh.
You know, by the time you've read 246 pages, it all goes together.
So there it says, independent study verification form will then be scanned into the. Okay. Yeah, I just totally missed that. So that's the only thing that I was wondering, is it all looked to be online, so therefore independent study. And so I thought it should have that, but it does. I just,
Thank you, Melanie. Do you happen to have a motion, Chelsea?
I do. Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the long-term provider initial application for debriefing the Frontlines, Inc.
This is Kanetta. I will motion.
Thank you,
Committee
Kanetta.
member.
and this is Melanie Burnett, and I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Melanie. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we are now ready to talk about any agenda items for the September 2021 committee meeting.
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea. What I have so far is the delinquent long-term providers.
Great. An update on that.
My question, this is Adri Goldsmith, board member. My question is there anything we can do to preempt other providers getting behind by sending out information detailing what is required, when it's required, and like we did the ones that didn't make it, you know, everything that's generally needed to be included? Again, I'm sure it's been done before.
This is Chelsea. I think part of what would help is to have the educator information on our website. And, you know, something that I've just thought of, of course, I'm new to this role, but something that I've thought of is as we get information of new coordinators on board, sending them that training information that would hopefully be posted on our website. And this is some of what can be addressed in that. But I am certainly open and hearing any suggestions. So hopefully we're not in this predicament again. But I think that probably it's driven a lot by changing of coordinators and them just not being aware of what's required in regulation, and just not knowing that they're even missing doing anything. So.
Yeah, I just took over a year ago, and if it wasn't for my assistant, I would be lost and I wouldn't have known half of what I know. She's amazing.
Well, and I think, Chelsea, having you in place and being able to keep up on this and bring the delinquencies forward so that we don't end up with a big long list of them, I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
We're kind of chartering new waters here with what to do with them once they're on the delinquent list. So I haven't been aware that we've done this in the time I've been on the board. So maybe we're establishing new processes going forward.
Well, and just so the committee is aware, as I mentioned, you know, the CNE reports and fees are due July 31st. So I'm actually planning to send another reminder out this week before I am off for a little bit. And then I will be back again in the beginning of July. So I'll send another one. So I'm going to just bombard them with reminders. So hopefully we don't have this as significant, but so far I've been getting them in. So at least we're moving forward.
Good. Well, great job. Okay. Well, not hearing any other agenda items, I think we are at the conclusion of our agenda. So I think we're prepared to adjourn. So thank you very much for joining. Chelsea, did you have something else you want to say?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you next quarter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.